Welcome back to the second part of the ISPE podcast with Amjad Wahbeh. So let's talk about regulations. What are the regulations, standards, and guidelines that you typically apply in the development of critical pharmaceutical projects, both in design phase and in installation and operation?
Well, of course, if we are talking about the pharmaceutical industry, it's highly regulated, and as everybody know, there's all the GMP guidelines issued by several entity, and we talked earlier about how the inspectors interpret this, the regulation, and it can be, of course, a wide interpretation. We try to go to the hardest one and go beyond it. I don't believe that the guideline is the limit of how we can do things. We can do things better. We can do things safer. We can do things even in more agilent way that can not only serve the regulator, but also serve the operator himself. So we go beyond, believe me or not, and that's why we were very successful in attracting a lot of international big pharma CMO when they see how we implement things. And this is all part not only of engineering office. I go back to the previous discussion and the question that the operations effort and contribution to the design is fundamental, and I would say it's 30-40%. Beside the fact that my background experience also operation, I was in the operation, and I saw how the joint effort between operation and engineering can generate such a dynamic and good result. So to answer your question, of course, we need to go to the strongest and highest standard, but this also should be not the limit, in my opinion. We can do always better. We can do, the guideline. I considered it as the passing degree in any exam. It's not the best degree. It's a passing degree. And we should go higher and better.
Thank you. In that regard, how does the ISP contribute to the standardization of technical processes and good practices in the pharmaceutical project management, in your point of view, of course?
Well, ISPE is 100,000 years cumulative of experience of people has been working in so many areas. So sometimes when we are in doubt of kind of decision to take, and there is ambiguous point in the regulation, we go to the regulators, and the regulators need time. Sometimes they don't give us the feedback as fast as we need or as deep as we need. They will say risk assessment will be enough, or do your study, and then we will evaluate after the status quo. And this is very dangerous. So we go to ISPE specialists to give us a kind of experience and feedback. And most of the time it was so enrichment that, we didn't look at that. Because, we ask because we don't know. We ask because we don't have the experience. And suddenly it comes with this rich feedback that, yes, this happened, and this is the result. This happened here, and this is the result. So I encourage everybody to engage in these question groups. I was in one about water, and I didn't have any issue with water issues, of course. But I saw so many questions and so many answers that, yeah, they are right. They are. You are talking about, as I said, hundreds of years of cumulative experience, and this is, priceless.
Focusing on specific projects like injectables or potent compounds, what are the key factors that you consider when managing the engineering for these units?
Well, of course, if we talk about injectables, which I served for 15 years dedicated or more, I would categorize them in three levels. You have the GF, what we call general formulation injectables. Then you have the potent, and they have the cytotoxics. So everyone has to have a different approach, have to have different category, and they have to have every different outlook. But the focus always for us is the people who work there, and how they can do their job in a safest way for both the product and then themselves. In many designs, we said we take the people out of the formula. That means keep the machine in its environment, in its room, and put the controls out. And this means that we need to control the exposure time of the operator per day, instead of 3 hours in front of the machine, to 15 minutes or 20 minutes. It's the time that he needs to go in. He's in a sterile phase, a sterile gown, but he's not in front of the product. He goes in, he solves the problem, and he comes out. The exposure is very important factor that we need to calculate how, and so every project is specific. We try to involve, it's one of the areas that we involve a very reputable consultants that can explain to us from his experience what we need to focus at what stage, and in what area. The liquid phase is different than the powder phase, different than, it's always easy to say go for the stringent procedure or requirement, but if you look at that, it will be impractical. So you have to bring somebody with knowledge that, and we do that often in the cytotoxic sites, somebody with knowledge that can help us rationalize the risk.
So, talking about high risks, how do you approach the mitigation of technical and regulatory risks in large-scale projects, such as expansions or implement new lines in existing facilities? As you talked earlier on the strategic thinking about when you do a revamping or a strategic move on a facility, we are always thinking on to see that the plant after 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So what is your thoughts about that?
Yeah, you need always to think about the future. The future is the lifeline of the company, and as I said earlier, engineering is the key thinker or the key designer of that future. Of course, engineering does not control that. The demand and the market controls that, and the compliant of the company requires that, and also controls that. If we don't have full compliance, if we don't have the state of the art, we will not get a CMO. If we don't have a space to expand, we will not grow. So these are the three factors that we always think about how to grow. Now, if we are talking about potent, and potent is a really special case, because you need to design the expansion of your project within the first step. So every time we design something, we say, if we are going to expand, which direction we are going to expand, how we can expand without influencing or minimizing the interruption of the ongoing operation, and how much, the question always, we need to think ahead. Are we going to think ahead 5 years from now, 10 years from now? The ratio I use is 3-1. So if we are expanding today one line, the market study says this is our engineering should think 3 times this. So if we are building one line, we should think about 3. If we are doing 3 lines, we should think about 9. To know who's our neighbor. Are we able to attract a bigger site acquisition? How we are going to acquire, and this is all not related only to potent, to all of engineering projects. If it was an acquisition, or it was a greenfield, or it was a simple expansion, we always need to think outside our environment, because nobody is really taking care of that other than engineering. Management cares about financing it. Marketing cares about the numbers that comes out. But engineering cares about all the logistics, which is the space for production, the space for warehousing, the space for packaging. So all of that has to be the canteen size, the gowning size, and all of that has to become in the start, because every one of these need to expand as we go. And that's how we train our engineers to think outside the box.
Going down to the execution details, during construction, what procedures do you enforce with contractors to ensure the cleanliness and integrity of all installed components?
Well, as I stated before, somebody called them contractors. I call them partners. There are three important things before we get into. Of course, we are a public company, and I have been working with procedures and tendering process, which is one of the most important things that protects the integrity of the engineering. Tendering has to be done, but also tendering does not mean going for the lowest price. Tendering means that we need to have a level of price that's fair and to avoid corruption and transparent. These are the important factor in the tendering. What becomes after is qualifying the contractors. Qualifying the contractors, we do it in also 3 levels. First, we visit their 3 to 5 year site, so we see what they build, not yesterday, but 3 years, and how it's sustained, how the integrity of it. Does it look aging like 20 years and 5 years, or it's integral and it's organized? Number 1. Number 2, we call their customers, and we see if they are happy with their service, after sale service, and that applies for contractors and machine suppliers. The third one, we send our engineers to their sites and to their workshops and to see how much they do it themselves and how much they out-contract. So this establish the integrity of the contractor or the suppliers, and establish a base for the right level of discussion. The third level, of course, as I said, is partnership. Partnership means for us is any project is a road for learning for both sides. We know what the contractor is capable of, and the contractor knows our specs in detail. And when these two match, there is a cost for it. So when we bring the contractor the first time, he learns and he makes mistakes, and that's a delay of the project, and that's time and money we lose. But the next project he's in, he knows what we accept and what we don't accept. At one point, I have been using one contractor for I think 15 years. And at one point, one of my engineers told him, "No, do it this way. It will be good." He refused. Although the site engineer accepted, and he refused because said, "This is not the standard that your company accept." And I was so proud of that contractor that this what pays off. So we don't have tendency to change contractors or suppliers. We have tendency to deal with them as partners, and I think this is one of the most successful factor to any project.
So that lead us to the qualification. Could you explain all the qualification stages, the design qualification, installation qualification, operational qualification, and performance qualification are structured in the pharmaceutical project, and what are the main problems that can arise if the construction phase isn't managed well?
Well, I think we talked thoroughly about the design qualification. The design qualification for me is much more than a document. It's a effort by engineering to do what I call the 3 and 4 and 5D. Take the virtual walk into the future to be site and get the right feedback. So this is how we think about the DQ. And of course, there's a big part of the DQ is who you contract to design with you. So it should be an experience of what your needs are. And it's not only a document, it's really a practice of life. So the designer knows how we do stuff. IQ and OQ, I think, as documents, they are important. But what's more important than that, what we call in the past is the SAT and FAT. I think these two terms, factory acceptance test and site acceptance test, they are so old and they are so overused that we at Hikmah look at them totally differently. For example, people send people to FAT to see what really machine can do in a timely manner, the output in timely manner, and in a accept and reject manner. What we do is much more. We send our people to the pre-FAT and during construction of the machine. During construction, we expose our maintenance people to the real building of the machine. So the maintenance guy understands the sequence of building the machine, which part comes from where. And he got a real structural understanding, and he might spend there 3, 4, 5 weeks, and we insist that time to be within a certain assembly point. So this one of the cornerstone of what I call the real IQ. The second cornerstone is what we call the pre-FAT. The pre-FAT is when the company, before inviting us to FAT, they test internally their machine. And this is where we expose all the design flows of the machine. The pre-FAT, they start with running a line that's supposed to be running at 500 a minute. They start with 100, and you see flying objects, why they are flying. So they start fixing it until they reach the 500. So from the 100 to the 500, you go through what we call the design flows. And they can fix it temporarily by adding stuff, but this is documented. And when we have the machine on house after 1 year and we see the same problem because of a wear of parts, because of something happened, we refer to the company that we saw this before. And this is the reason why when we do the IQ and maybe the PQ, it's a real PQ. It's a PQ that talks to the problems and is if they are really addressed after the pre-FAT. So we take these FAT to the really essence of the FAT, not only to the documented evidence, although we do the FAT. So the pre-FAT is very fundamental. Then we go to the SAT. Also SAT for us is an old term, and it's exhausted term. We look at the SAT as okay, the machine is installed and thank you for your effort. But we take that further. We ask the supplier to stay with us in contact and maybe on site till we reach 90% of our output, because usually you need to build experience, and experience is very, very fundamental for the operator, because who's the guy who's driving the car? If he doesn't know how to drive it, he will break it the second day. So you need him to be with him to reach the 90%. 90%, I mean, of the output. So if the machine is designed for 400 or 500, they need to reach 90% of that. And this is contractual. So, and this is paid for. So they stay with us until we assure that that speed. So we are more pragmatic in looking at the IQ, OQ, PQ. And I think this is why we can build a plant and make it ready and running within 24 months. But the idea is how you can reach the 90% within the next 2 months or 3 months and not take you 1.5 years. I'll give you an example. If you run a line with 100 objects per minute, you can run it with minimal experience. It's slow. But if you compare it to 500 a minute, that's why we are reaching now in the industry. We are running now at 600 actually a minute. You need fundamentally 3 things. You need a perfect component, sort one, that's the glass or the cap, or it should be with minimal tolerance, so we call it sort one. You need an extremely good size parts. If they start wearing, they receive vial flying. So if you run at high speed, you need a very perfect component and size parts. And the third perfect thing, you need a very good operator. You can't get a mediocre or a two days guy to control that. He needs to be very, very good in understanding. So there is a difference. Not only IQ will give you that or PQ will give you that. It's a really a knowledge of the machine that you need to build from starting building it. And that's why I go back to the word partnership. That's why our suppliers are our partners. We don't look at them as one-time buy. We look at them as really, and this is also helps us in the degradation of the machine age or the aging of the machine, that we have always a support, continuous support to do it.
Okay, looking at all those processes, what emerging technologies such as digital twins, AI, augmented reality do you find most promising for optimizing engineering and maintenance?
I think 2 things we need to differentiate. AI is a very, very beneficial tool. I just starting understanding it, and it's humongous capability, and we are looking around, start thinking how we can deploy it and how we can get the best out of it, other than a research how to find this and how to find that. In our the other side of is automation. I think nowadays, if you look at the car industry and how they automate their process, is amazing. For the last 20 years, you see these robots doing all the work. We started this 3 years ago. It was really a courageous step by our quality to accept that concept, because when you do a risk assessment, you see you need a guy hands in or you need a robot to do that. And I think what made it easier is the advancement of robot programming. It became much easier. You don't need 5 specialists to do it. And if you use the teach mode, you can tell the robot where to go and what to do. And it's much cleaner than having alcohol sprayed back in and out from the isolator or from the wrap. I'm talking about mostly in a sterile environment. So we started deploying it. And as I said, our quality was very courageous to, say, okay, let's try it. And we were successfully deploying it in 2 sterile rooms. And it was not something that we bought from original company, something we deploy after the fact. And they see the benefit. They see the compliance, much more compliant. It can work in a hazardous environment. There is no risk to people. There is no fatigue. So I see a huge advancement. Although the pharmaceutical industry is very cautious and very conservative. I think this is the right word. But I see a lot of deployment of that in the future.
In terms of innovation, I think the AI could help us to speed up the new products and in terms of project management and design, they will help us to probably in a few years to be in easiest way to build a 3D or something like that will be easier with AI, I guess. So to close this more technical block, throughout your career, what lessons do you consider most valuable for ensuring that critical projects are delivered according to pharmaceutical requirements on time and on budget? It's a tough one.
Well, I don't think there is any project that you can finish on budget, especially when you have a lot of people putting ideas there. But engineering can be predictable out of experience of each site and each culture and each regulatory requirement. I think fundamentally is you need to evaluate and depend on your resources. And as I mentioned before, your resources are your engineering staff. Engineering staff should be involved. Internal engineering staff should be involved in from doing the first study to the contracting to the design to throughout the tendering and negotiation to start execution. So the internal engineers would know the details. Some companies depend on consultants, and the entrance of consultants, external consultants, different than the interest of the company employees. So I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but this is what we do. And this is, I think, what makes us successful in engineering. Last year, we delivered 3 plants in 3 countries. And the method is the same. We have our engineers, the trained engineers, that we train them here 3 to 5 years. They take the process from design to tendering to execution, and they stay until it's delivered to production. And they stay till what I call the 90%. So the real success is depending on your engineers that they know your process and they control the budget throughout and the timeline. So if we have a delay, we signal much faster and we bring much faster the remedy plan by working weekends with a contractor, by negotiating extending or having 2 shifts in construction. I remember at one point the contractor was late and he came with a suggestion. He said, why we don't do framing during the day that we need 50 people and we pour concrete during the night. So concrete pouring needs 5 people. And this way we managed to finish a project in 16 months or 18 months instead of 24. But this needs us to be close to the contractor and be there when he needs, because he needs authorization to pour at night. He needs a representative of the company to pour at night. So this closeness to the timeline and to the budget does not allow it to shift. You can't have a project with the plan of 24 months to come 36. It comes 36 because the management knows about it way late. And when you are late, so we don't allow it to roll down to, and we find ways to control and recover.